Good day, everyone. Welcome to Fit into the Cloud, a podcast series by AVM Cloud, a cloud for the enterprise. I'm Srinivas Rao, the Chief Strategy Officer for AVM Cloud, and I'm excited as ever to bring y'all episode 4 of our podcast series. It has been a great journey of the podcast series over the past 3 episodes, where we spoke to Veeam on the market trends of data protection, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud approach with time, and then with VMware, my old family, and now we are again back here to discuss something about data protection again. But this time, like I promised in the first episode, we're going to speak a little more about architecture, a little more understanding about how data protection is relevant in the multi-hybrid cloud world. And this time too, we are speaking to Veeam itself. So let's not waste any time and bring in the senior pre-sales or system engineer. You call him anything, right? He's the technical geek of Veeam and the region in the country, right? And he has been very close to the customers in building the architectures, the use of data protection. What is the right way to do it, right? So let's not delay anymore. Let's bring in Lai from Veeam. Hey, Lai. Good morning. Good day to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, I mean, this is an exciting episode for me. For me personally, because I've been very close to data protection when it comes to my previous experiences, how important data protection is. But I think data protection in general is a very important aspect of any infrastructure, any organization's IT blueprint. And it's great to have you speaking to us about it. I know with your vast experience of speaking to so many organizations, so many customers, it'll be a very nice conversation. Let's kickstart this particular episode first with an introduction about yourself. Who is Lai? Why are we speaking to Lai? Why should people listen to Lai? Let's go.
Thank you, Srini. Well, my name is Lai Yong Sing, but you can call me Lai. I'm a Veeam SE. I'm a senior SE, which is based in Malaysia. And I have been in the industry for Veeam almost 6 years already. Right. When I start to join Veeam that times, right, the first 2 years I'm supporting emerging market. So I flew to Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, and also support Malaysia market as well. Then after that, after more than 2 years travel overseas, so I got bored. Then management decided to transfer me back to handle Malaysia market. So right now I'm based in Malaysia. So for those customers who would like to seek any advice about Veeam, I will be the person of context which will assist you in terms of architectures, sizing, and even do enablement as well.
That's great, Lai. That's a vast range of experience because you've even worked in the emerging market space, which means a lot more, novice experience around how data protection was relevant there, right? So it's kind of, for me, it is very, very, very important to speak from a technology aspect as well, because these episodes were not just aimed at just giving a market view of what are the technology trends, but it's also to give a technological view of the same market trends. So, I'm very excited to have this conversation. So let's not delay any further. If you're fine with it, let's have this chat. This is going to be a great chat. Now, one of the most important things I think that has been spoken about, you go to any webinar, any podcast, we speak about the current COVID situation, how it has impacted the whole technological space, the whole world as such, right? But technological space and also, the whole adoption of multi-cloud, cloud journey has been impacted too. But more importantly, the IT landscape, like we speak about, that has been very, very, very important impact on it. So there are different factors, right? External pressures unknown have changed the IT infrastructure landscape. There are new challenges that have come up. Now, I think Veeam did themselves a survey in 2021. There is a data protection report on your website as well, which looked into some of the huge enterprise customers worldwide and how they approached data protection and management trend, right? So I think it will be very nice for us to get your view on that. Before which, I'll just tell you, 11% of growth in global economic uncertainty has been created due to the situation. Now, Also, interestingly, this particular uncertainty has led into accelerating the cloud usage, and 96% of the organizations will move into cloud adoption. That is great, right? Now, as they move into the cloud, the organizations are also speaking about availability gaps. There's so much concern about availability. 80% of the respondents, I believe, spoke about availability gaps, and data protection is normally about not just predicting but also recovering. And I think a majority of the survey respondents spoke about, at least 58% spoke about how they cannot recover data. So backup, data protection, the reliability of it is one of the main factors. In fact, the number one driver in terms of how to look at data protection. Now, I would like to get your views around it. What do you see? What do you think about data protection? How does data protection come to rescue modern data protection? Go for it, Lai.
Yeah. Well, the good things about one thing is about COVID lockdown is we started with since last year's March, right? Everyone tend to stay at home. This is the best part, right? But the biggest problem right now for IT organizations, the IT operations and also all the operations still running, all right. And beside than that, all the applications they need to be protected, all right. And the biggest problems when it's the lockdown, right? Everyone cannot go back to office to work, all right. So therefore, there's one issue that most of the customers are facing is they was not able to change their tape. Okay, for those customers who are using tape, right, they cannot go back and change the tape. All right, for those of them who do have an autoloader, they are fine. Okay, but some customers they don't have autoloader, they still need to manually change the tapes. All right, so this is one of the biggest issues. Right.
So here you're speaking about long-term retention, right? When you speak
Right.
about tapes, you're speaking about long-term retention. Yeah, great. Go ahead.
So long-term retention is one of them. All right, because when we talk about availability, you need to always follow the 3-2-1 rule. All right, that means you need to have 3 copies of your backup data. 2 of them must store into different media, and 1 of them need to be offsite. Okay, it depends on the organization. Some of them they really need to follow the regulation. All right, uh, tape is one of them. All right, and then the next thing will be because of that kind of issues whereby they cannot go back to office, all these kind of things. There's a concerns whereby they are looking into alternative. All right, how do they ensure that they able to have another copy? All right,
Right.
and let's and
Right.
then
So
another yeah.
I'm so sorry to cut you off, but you're speaking about so one aspect is long-term retention, but the other aspect is how do you protect your copy of backup itself?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Good.
Right, and the then another thing is everyone start to look into collaboration tools. Okay, that is where we are using, for example, Microsoft Office. They are starting to use Microsoft Teams to collaborate with each other to have a meetings between partners, customers, and even to colleagues as well. So due to that, everyone is rushing for deployment. But then the next thing is they forget about data protection. Rushing for deployment means they are unprotected, okay,
Correct.
especially of Microsoft Teams, right?
Right.
The one thing that everyone need to understand as well, when we talk about modern data protections, not only you focus on on-premise solution, you also
Right.
need to look about Office 365, public
Right.
cloud,
Right.
and also hybrid environment as well.
Correct.
Right?
Okay. Right. Right. So modern data protection, like you rightly mentioned, right, is not just about on-prem data protection. It's not just about systems and servers. It's also about, and due to this current situation, there's a lot more use of collaboration tools, like you mentioned, rightly so, right? So it's important to look at how data has been moving around in those collaboration tools, right? So now, there are some interesting facts also, but I would like you to touch on how modern data protection has changed the orchestration of disaster recovery or unified management, or cloud mobility kind of stuff, because there are some interesting numbers that I would like to also speak about. Because one of the things about modern data protection, is about like I mentioned, restoration issues. Right, 58% of the crowd spoke about having problems to restore data, which means disaster recovery will become an important aspect too. Right, and also you rightly pointed out about people using a lot of cloud-based solutions, which means protecting the workloads on the cloud, as well as when the ability for the workloads move from cloud to cloud, how do you continuously protect them becomes even more important. And the integration of the whole protection into the security aspect, so many other things, right? But I would like to pick your brains on probably how modern data protection has evolved in the disaster recovery space. In the you said because there are so many different systems of use of cloud usage on Office 365, so many things. So unified management of data protection also becomes important. Multiple different clouds where organizations put their workload on. So how is this changing as well in modern data protection space?
Well, in this IT, we do see the trend of changing, okay? Because as what I just mentioned about the COVID lockdown, all these kind of things, uh, they are looking into an alternative solution whereby we do see there's an adoption of moving their data to the cloud. That means they are running all their workload or even replicating their backup data to the cloud. So this
Right.
is where Veeam come into pictures whereby we allow you to make a copy or move your oldest backup data to to the cloud for long-term archiving. All right.
Right.
So
Right.
that will fulfill the objective of having a 3-to-1 rule. All right.
Right.
And also to eliminate the problem of going back to office, example for changing the tapes. Right.
Right.
This is then the next thing is some people they are looking into cloud as a DR. All right. So what we can do for you is we allow you to convert your on-premise backup data and seamlessly move your backup your workload into the public cloud. For example, we already can support AWS and Azure, and upcoming we are going to allow the customers to move to GCP. All right, not only moving your data to the cloud, protecting your workload using our cloud native as well. All right,
Right.
we also have what we call unified management. Okay, in
Right.
our latest release, V11, we allow you to from on-premise your Veeam backup server, the console that you use it every day to do operation management. Right now, that particular product itself can do management of those protections on the public cloud. Right.
Great. I probably will stop you right there and not spill out too much, because I think in the future sections of this episode, we're going to touch on a few more aspects of Veeam 11, V11. We're going to touch about cloud native protection and stuff like that. So let's just, I'll hold you back. Don't mind, I'll hold you back on that conversation for a bit, because I want to go deeper into that conversation with you. So you kind of pointed out all those important aspects of how unified management is important, having that single console view of all protection of all the workloads and all that. Right now, you also touched on the aspect of moving workloads between clouds. You spoke about how you are coming up with even GCP protection, adding on to AWS and Azure. And I think that's where even AVM plays a role, right? We use Veeam to, for customers to protect the workload and move those workloads from their on-prem into AVM cloud as well. Now, I think it is kind of the right time for us to dwell into how does Veeam help or manage data in a multi-cloud world. How does it help? Now, before we get into that complete management of that, I think it is important to understand the general infrastructure components, the backup infrastructure components, or the data protection components in a multi-cloud, multi-hybrid cloud-ready architecture. What are those components? Now, I think before we get into even that general components, it's important to understand what are the use cases for multi-cloud from a data protection point of view. Right. One, like you mentioned, you can back up and restore into the cloud and move those. And you also spoke about long-term protection, how you can move your archive backup into the cloud. So to the cloud, how do you do that? Then disaster recovery. There's one more that you mentioned. Then another use case. I think we're going to touch on these use cases a little more as we go into the architecture, because those will become very evident when we discuss. Is how do you move? How do you protect the data from the cloud? Example: SaaS vendors putting their solutions. There's still organization data sitting there. How do you protect those while sitting there? And infrastructure as a service, which is consumed on the public cloud. How do you protect those? And also inside the cloud itself. Now, we, it obviously started off as an on-prem data protection solution, but has moved into cloud, like rightly so, like everyone else. But I think there is also a huge change in terms of a lot how all most of the organizations have their workloads on multiple different public clouds. So within those public clouds, how do you ensure there is business continuity? How do you ensure cross-cloud backups? AWS, Azure, how do you back up between them? So I think those are the right use cases. And here, I know once we have mentioned these use cases, I think this will be the right system engineer job, right? The customer has given you use cases. Now let's look at how your architecture. What is the architecture you would propose to me? I'll throw it out to you. What is the architecture that you would propose in managing data on such a multi-hybrid cloud use case?
All right. So I will begin with on-premise solution first, right? So if you want to protect your workload on-premise, right, you can just deploy the Veeam components, right, which consists of Veeam backup servers, proxy, and repositories. And then once you deploy that, you can put it into a single server, or you can scale it out, especially on the proxy and repo. The next thing is by using the Veeam backup servers, you're able to protect agentless platforms. Okay, for example, those hypervisors running on Hyper-V, VMware, Nutanix Acropolis. And one thing which I would like to share to everyone as well, our next upcoming release on V11, we are going to add on additional one workload called Red Hat virtualization.
Nice.
And the best part is it's all agentless. So you don't need to use agents to protect those workloads. So our solution is to back up entire images. Okay, that is for backup. Then when we talk about DR, you can use Veeam solutions to do VM replications. Okay, for those hypervisor running VMware to VMware, Hyper-V to Hyper-V. Okay, so we got backup, we got replications, VM replications, and then the next thing is for physical workload. Okay, either you're running on Windows, Linux, Mac OS, okay, either servers or workstation, you can use our agent base. Okay, we even release an agent for Oracle Solaris and AIX to protect those workloads. For those applications such as SAP HANA and Oracle, we can protect using RMAN. Okay, and also SAP HANA plugin. All right.
Wow.
Now the next question will be,
I can see you going into every single aspect of how the backup infrastructure, what are the agents, what are the agentless. It's a huge thing, right? The architecture cannot be as simple as trying 4 boxes, which was the case about a few years ago. But right now, the architecture looks pretty huge.
Yeah, it looks very huge, but it's not that difficult to implement the whole entire thing. That's why you need a pre-sales and all the SPs as a partners, and you as the AVM cloud to help the partners as well, and also customers. All right.
Correct.
But one thing that remember just now we talked about the 3-2-1 rule. Okay. So the next thing is you able to use Veeam to replicate your data to another data centers.
Right.
Or if you're looking into cloud, okay, if you're open to cloud, you can also put your backup data into object storage.
Right. I mean that's a very, very common use case of late, right? Object storage has become such an important consideration, part of the data protection strategy in any organization. I think we can touch on that a little more deeper as we go along. From what I hear from you from an architecture perspective, there are the traditional aspects of backup component, infrastructure components like the backup server, proxy, repo service, the storage repositories itself, and there are agent and agentless backups, and there is also replication that needs to be considered when you look at the architecture of managing data across multi-cloud, because the same replication will be used to replicate workloads from on-prem to a hyperscale provider, right? And also the sense of using the same, the commonality that I hear from you is the same backup infrastructure can be used for agentless, physical, virtualization layer, different hypervisors, replication to on-prem, different data center, or to the cloud, backup of to object storage from a long-term retention perspective also. So many different things from a same solution. That's a very nice platform that we're talking about. Now, so this is the this we call the Veeam availability platform. Is that right? Am I saying it right or?
Yes, correct. This is the Veeam availability platforms. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not right or wrong there, lah. So it's still called the Veeam availability platform. Great. Okay. So now this is what we were speaking about, right? A Veeam availability platform, which has that single data management platform for on-prems to cloud natives to physical instances to different kind of operating systems. And I see you all. There is also support for Solaris, AIX, and also application-specific support on that about data protection and all that. Now, if you don't mind, can we just touch a little more into how do you recover? How do you back up, recover, and migrate to, from, and within anywhere? I'm using your own tagline. I'm not saying anything different. This is exactly what y'all speak about. So can you touch on that? What is that? What is that really?
Right. So just now I explained on the architectures on-premise. Okay, now let's look into your workload on the public cloud. Okay?
Right.
You do have a workload running on AWS, Azure, and GCP. All right. And the best part about Veeam is with the Veeam availability platforms, you can now deploy virtual appliance to back up those workloads natively.
Right.
Okay, natively means you do not need to install agent. All right. So those backup, we're able to do snapshots, okay, for short-term recovery, and then you can put it into object storage for long-term recovery.
Correct.
And the best part about this is all this you can manage by the on-premise Veeam backup server.
Right.
Okay, that
Right.
means unified management. You can
Right.
configure policies, and then you can also do transfers your backup data back to on-prem.
Right. Right.
So that means your workload running on public cloud. In case of any disasters on the public cloud, let's say touch wood, right? You can just fire up the virtual your backup data which you replicate from the cloud back to on-prem as VMware or Hyper-V. All right.
Great.
Not
Now,
only that. Okay.
yeah.
Not only that.
Okay.
Now
You still have.
let's yes. So let's move into more wider perspective. Remember just now we talked about AWS, Azure, and GCP. These
Right.
three different clouds.
Right.
By using our solutions, right, you're able to move your workload between these three hyperscaler clouds. We help you to do conversion. For example, your VMware workload, you convert the virtual machines and move it to AWS, Azure, and upcoming, we are going to support GCP. Those
Nice.
workload running on AWS, you can convert it and run on Azure. This is what we talk about seamless of migrations or portability. So that means our solution does not tie to any of the hyperscaler cloud. We allow you to choose any of the cloud and move your workload seamlessly.
Great. Like you kind of helped me to have a particular use case conversation. So let me just give an example here for our viewers also to understand this better. Whatever you spoke about, it'll be a great way of explaining what you spoke about. Hopefully, right? If I can put it the right way. But so let's say, for example, I'm running a workload on AWS, an EC2 instance. I'm using their S3 storage. I run that instance there using the on-prem Veeam infrastructure, which is that unified management, that one solution which can do a lot of things. You can back up that EC2 instance and onto your on-prem. Now, once you do that, right, you can also what you can also do is, let's say I want to move this EC2 instance from AWS into Azure. Yeah, game on. You can do that. use the same Veeam solution, which can actually migrate from an EC2 into an Azure VM. Wonderful. Now, this Azure VM probably gets backed up on an Azure blob. Yeah, great. You can do the backup too, right? And that's a great aspect. And that same thing applies even for GCP, from a GCP VM to GCP cloud storage, all of that. So what you're saying is one unified platform, which can actually protect your on-prem workloads, protect your public cloud workloads, but also restore the backup copy from your on-prem repository, because you want to keep your backup data probably on-prem, and then restore it into another cloud if required. Or you can replicate the workload from one cloud into another cloud using the same backup solution, which makes amazing sense, right? Now, not only this, I think there is also the aspect of Office 365, which we spoke about initially, right? And loads of integrations from storage perspective that you'll have, from all the repo perspectives and all that. So obviously, all of this, when you say one solution, does not happen with one software sitting there. There are so many different components within this, cloud management platform that you're talking about, data protection platform that you're talking about. And I think you would be very keen to get into how you all do geo-redundancy, how you all do orchestration, how do you all do multi-tenancy of, management of for the Veeam backups, and so many different things. So very briefly, I know it's not easy to do this on a podcast to explain the components of a backup infrastructure as effectively as you could do probably on a whiteboard, which we have done in the past, I guess. But can you just briefly speak about what is the what are the components? What are the different components?
Well, if I want to talk about component, that will be quite a long journey, which is going to take very long. So what I'm going to do is, let's start with Office 365. All right.
Okay.
So you can use Veeam solutions to protect Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. Those backup data, you can put it into local storage. Okay, that means you put it on-prem, or you can leveraging on object storage.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Then the second thing is we look into DR. Okay, everyone's look into DR orchestration. Okay, especially when you're running on VMware platforms. All right. So you can also use Veeam DR orchestrators tool to orchestrate your disaster recovery plan. All right. So by using these products, you can build a workflow. Okay, that means inside that workflow, you consist of multiple virtual machines. Inside that virtual machine, each of the workload, for example, domain controller, you will test DNS, group policy, all these kind of things, right? Web server, you will do different kind of tests, right? And then the best part about these DR orchestrations, right? Once you build the workflow, all right, you can schedule it to do testing. Okay, that means it will help you as the operator.
DR simulation per se.
Yes,
DR
correct.
simulation. Okay.
You can do DR simulations. You can schedule it as well to test your workflows. And then the best part is our DR orchestrator. The best part is it helps the customers to generate documentation. The workflow that you build, the test that you perform, all this will generate documentation. So it did help a lot of operators to perform a DR test.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the next thing is for those service provider or resellers, we do have another product which is called Veeam Service Provider Console. You can use these products to help those customers to manage their infrastructures.
Nice.
So one single product, you can view all the data protections. You can configure the policy to deploy agents or manage it, right? Or even to assist the customer as well.
Wonderful. You know what? You are a Superman. Speaking technical architecture components on a podcast without having a whiteboard and not even showing up slides. That is damn good. At least I got the idea of what you're telling. But this gives us a lot more assurance from AVM, because this is exactly what we do with Veeam. Today, whatever I spoke about, an EC2 instance that can be backed up to your on-prem and stuff, that's exactly what our customers can do, even on AVM Cloud. Ideally, we use Veeam the same way that any organization, any customer would use the Veeam backup infrastructure to be able to manage multiple clouds. The same way we do it for AVM Cloud too. So workload that's running on AVM Cloud can be protected the same way, orchestrated the same way from a DR protection point of view. Even if customer is running some other public cloud service and wants to back up that instance into AVM Cloud to have a copy of it. Oh, great, we can do that. Object storage, long-term retention, we do that as well. So all of those, and I think that is the reason we partner so wonderfully well with Veeam. Now, now having said that, there is a very important aspect. I think this I will probably put you on the hook for a bit on this. There's a very high conversation around immutable backup, which is I think you're aware, but for the viewers, from an on-prem infrastructure perspective, you might back up your workloads, or even from public cloud, you can back up your workloads and your data and everything and have multiple copies within the on-prem infrastructure. But due to the growing security aspects of ransomware attacks and different kinds of attacks that are coming in, there is a very high visibility around something called immutable backup copy, which means even if your backup copy is sitting in your on-prem, if you're able to move that backup copy through a backup solution to another place where a ransomware attack will not destroy or even touch the data that has been backed up, that is called immutable backup copy. Now, Lai, do you have anything to shed on that, or am I putting you on the hook on the wrong spot, on the wrong time, and the wrong conversation?
No, you hit the spot. All right. This is one of the capabilities on our current version V11. So we introduced what we call a hardened Linux repo. So this is one of the capabilities that you can put it on-premise to protect your backup data. Right. Because for the past 12 years, right, since Veeam has been in the market, right, so most of times when we put our backup data, we always put it into the Windows repo. All right. So as what we all know, right, Windows repo, they tend to quite vulnerable, right? Even though you install with the latest patches, you also install antivirus, but no one can guarantee about ransomware, right? So they always love to target the Windows repo, right? And they love to encrypt your backup data. So what we did in V11, right? You can set up a Linux repo, you harden it, right? The next thing is by using Veeam capabilities, you can set immutable functions. That means you lock the backup data for a certain period of days. By default, minimum is 7 days. Okay, but you can set it longer. You can set it longer.
Correct.
So once you set immutable, right? That means no one can make changes. Even hackers. Okay, hackers, ransomware, they try to modify this backup data, they will not be able to. All right. Not only to protect your on-premise with hardened Linux repo, we also have integration with public cloud, for example, AWS. You can also enable immutable function. So that means you're protecting your data not only from on-prem, but also to the cloud.
Great. Now, I think I still would you into having a conversation about V11 somehow by speaking about that immutable backup. But just for the viewers also, right, this is the power of using a good backup solution, and a good backup solution like Veeam, right? Because you get a lot of things that the current market is viewing as a pain point addressed immediately through the solution. And that's no different even for AVM Cloud. We are very soon coming up with an immutable backup as a service option for our customers so that they can be protected from ransomware, which is the main theme of how, one of the main themes of how Veeam 11 is. Now, since we are touching on that, I think this is the right time to speak about V11. And that particular thing that I'm holding live from talking about it, saying you hold on, I know it's the biggest, it's the biggest release for Veeam. And it's a great release because of the features and functionalities that it brings. I'm holding that conversation. The reason I'm holding is there's a precursor to why we need to have a V11 conversation, why those features make sense. Okay, so Lai, if you don't mind, I'll just give me 2 minutes to go through what I think, what my thought process is, what V11 probably will be addressing. right? And then you can tell whether I'm right or wrong, and you can go into the aspects of does it do it or not, right? First thing, today's legacy data protection systems are letting down companies, and there needs to be a change about it, correct? You know, there are more frequent outages that the organizations look at and face in the current world, and especially unexpected downtimes. Huge loss. That's a huge loss of data. Probably if the backup processes are not put in place, it could be a permanent data loss, correct? That's one of the main challenge areas, right? And also there's also problem with perception when it comes to legacy data protection. Yeah, we think putting in a backup infrastructure to protect your on-prem infrastructure, your legacy systems, we have covered the protection aspect, right? But we forget that the core aspect of recovery is still a challenge, and something that most of the, like I said initially, right, during my initial part of the conversation of this episode, I spoke about a number. 58% of the organization of the respondents did say that data recovery is a huge concern. They see data losses. It's not easy to recover. Now, this brings to the point of why this new solution, what are the questions, or what are the kind of questions that it is going to help solve. Stability of backup and restore, how is it going to solve? How is it also helping with flexibility of having a data protection from data growth to mobility of data towards cloud and security risk? We spoke a little bit about ransomware. How do we reuse data? Data is no more just backup, keep it there, it's there on the repository, but there are ways to reuse it. I mean, anyone you speak to from an organization will speak about speeds, right? Like, so how about backup and recovery speeds, ease of use of it? Because there are very important, numbers to this game where all these questions organizations have spoken about and said these are important for them to find. These are very important questions to be addressed to find a great backup solution. How do you improve RTOs? How do you improve reliability? How do you have reduce software or hardware costs using these solutions? How do you reuse the data and all of that? So without ado, let's get Lai to speak about V11. What is it, Lai? What is this whole noise about V11 in the market?
Well, Srini, I do agree your point. Legacy data protections, they are more focused on backup. That is what everyone is doing. But
Right.
they are lacking in terms of what we call fast recovery.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
So this is where Veeam has been continued for the past 12 years to innovate the products. That's why the current versions right now, V11, we still continue to do our work on that. All right. And the best part about here is the first features that we introduce is what we call continuous data protections. Right. So by using these particular features, right, you can now minimize your what we call RPO, right, to replicate your virtual machine to VR, right? So last time we used to use what we call VMware snapshot to do replications, but now we do introduce a continuous data protections. The best part about this is you can replicate your changes as low as minimum of 2 seconds. So that means your data loss is only 2 seconds.
Wow. So that's a huge change from your earlier versions in terms of what those numbers were. I mean, 2 seconds. That's a great move, a great change. Is there anything that you can share a little more on how is that 2 seconds possible? I mean, because from a virtualization layer, you'll still do snapshot based or whatever, right? I mean,
No,
yeah.
Yep. The CDP does not use snapshot. So what it did is based on the changes on the particulars VMware, we continues to replicate every 2 seconds. So it's very useful for those high transaction workload. For example, your SQL database, your Oracle, those very high transaction workload, and you cannot afford to have a lot of data loss. So by
Correct.
which allow you to replicate every 2 seconds, right? So that means all your changes will be available at the DR side, right?
Right.
And all this
Right.
is powered by using a VMware VAIO technology.
Right. I was just
Yeah.
about to say that. So that also brings to the point, if 2 seconds is something that is achievable now with the solution, it also brings to the point about bandwidth and the normal things that customers will be concerned about.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to
Yes.
give, continuous replication, 2 seconds, and all that means higher bandwidth, more cost on the network, and the conversation goes on and on. I'm sure there is something that you'll have done in terms of optimization around those. I know I might be asking you to tell too much from a technology aspect or technical
Yeah.
aspect of this, but briefly just tell why shouldn't the customers be too worried about bandwidths, and how does the solution from Veeam help optimize those?
If you want to optimize the bandwidth, we do allow you to deploy our built-in WAN accelerators. And the best part about this is that our built-in WAN accelerators, we have been customized it and optimized it to support the bandwidth up to 1 gig.
Right.
So if you plan to do replications of 2 seconds, you want to optimize the bandwidth, then you can deploy our built-in WAN accelerators. That will give
Great.
you a better compressions and also optimize your bandwidth.
Great. I mean, a great first note on what V11 has CDP. That's great.
Yes,
What
correct.
what what else does it have?
The second one, which I already mentioned about the immutable hardest Linux repo. So I'm not going to talk about that. So let's move on to the next capabilities. All right. So remember just now we talked about object storage. Okay.
Correct.
Now people look into object storage to put the backup data there. So
Correct.
the next thing they probably will ask, they will talk about is the cost. Okay.
Correct.
They're planning to put their backup data into the cloud. It may incur a very expensive, okay, storages. But the thing is, in V11, we start to introduce support for AWS Glacier and also Azure Archive Storage.
Okay.
So for your oldest backup data, which you tend to keep for 1 year to 7 years or even more, you want to be cost efficiency, we can move your backup data from the normal archive, the normal tier to the cold tier, archive
So,
tier.
so this is where the Cloud Connect comes into place.
No, not really. All this
Okay.
is not using Cloud Connect. So all
Okay.
this is a part of the V11 we
Wow.
also
Okay.
we introduced, and
Okay.
you can just specify archive tiers and specify the when you want to move it. We will help you to do conversion. All this without Cloud
Nice.
Connect. Yeah.
Nice. And this is the long-term retention. But again, just my personal view on this, right? Especially when it comes to regulations and industries which are heavily regulated and all that, that long-term retention to a public cloud. Obviously, there are concerns around, how regulatory aspects are handled. That'll be a growing concern, anyways, as you go along until the regulatory bodies also get aligned with how cloud security is very evident and good, right? But I think for us from AVM Cloud, that's where we kind of add a different dimension to our customers within the country and the region, where the customers can choose the same S3 capability on AVM Cloud. We use the same Veeam backup solution to be able to give the long-term retention on our cloud as well from a long-term archiving storage perspective. And when we say cheap archival storage, obviously object storage will make sense, but when you look at a hyperscale provider, there are other costs that you've got to look at too. So I think that's a great idea around how V11 actually has inbuilt the S3 Glacier and Azure Archive capabilities within it, whereas there is still availability of Cloud Connect in terms of trying to move to any other backup into connect to any other object storage out there. So having touched on CDP, you have already, and like previously mentioned, you've touched on ransomware protection, immutable backup, how you'll do that, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, the blah, blah, blah was just for the sake of it. The Amazon S3 Glacier and the Azure Archive, you touched on that. Now, there is a particular number that I've been speaking right from the beginning of the episode till now, which is about recovery. How
Yes.
does V11 address recovery? The biggest pain point. Recoveries are not true. It doesn't happen. It is failures. There's so many instances of recoveries failing and failing and failing. So what is the change that V11 has brought?
All right. So this is talking about when disaster happen, how do you fast to do recovery? All right. And Veeam has been very famous in terms of instant VM recovery. Okay. Our proven case study, we able to power on a 7 terabyte backup data as a virtual machine within less than 3 minutes. Okay. So you may ask me, how about 20 terabyte, 30 terabyte,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
100 terabyte? Okay.
Yeah.
My answer back to you is still remain 3 minutes. All right.
Wow.
That,
Okay.
yep. So that is virtual machine. But
Okay.
then the next thing is, because we receive a lot of feedbacks from the customers, so therefore we decided in V11 we want to do more. All right. So this
Okay.
is where we introduce instant database recovery.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
So what does it mean? Instant database recovery. Okay. So if your workload is running on SQL database or even Oracle database, all right, you back up using Veeam. When your database is corrupted, without wasting a lot of time to do restoration, because we know
Mhm.
restoration will probably take you few hours because the site is too huge.
Right.
But what we do is we can now mount your backup data, your database into the productions, and we can bring this up the database within few minutes.
Right. Right.
Okay, so
Uh,
by bringing that, your database or it's already mounted and running. That means your application will be start to run without
right.
wasting time of restoration.
That's awesome. That's
Okay,
really great. That's really great.
yeah,
Like, I mean, again, in the interest of time, because the podcast, we can't run it for. I know it's technical, and we have got so many things to cover. I still have so many things that I want to ask you and get your brains on. Let's go ahead quickly. Having understood V11 in that aspect, and you have told one solution for everything, right? Can you just very quickly, in probably 15, 30 seconds, speak about how licensing works?
well, the licensing will be straightforward. We call it Veeam Universal Licensing. So it's calculated based on the workload that we protect.
Right?
Okay, so if you got, for example, virtual machines, one VM is one instance, and then physical servers, one instance equal to one physical servers, and then for NAS will be 500 GB per instance. So the minimum purchase will be one instance, one bundle equal to 10 instances. So every time you purchase the VUL license, the Veeam Universal licensing will be one bundle. So one bundle, you can protect 10 workload.
Great.
The best part about this Veeam Universal licensing is it also covers for hyperscaler cloud. Remember just now we talked about protection on the cloud. You can
Right.
use
Right.
back the same licensing.
Okay.
And the great thing about this is the license is portable.
Nice. Nice.
So that
Nice.
means you protect on-premise, suddenly you decided to move to the cloud, you can use back the same VUL licensing.
That's great. That's great. Thanks so much, Lai. I know you stuck to your 30 seconds. You tried to give your best inside the 30 seconds explaining the well. That's great. Now, there are two topics probably we want to cover real quick. Probably the one good topic that I think we can cover real quick and spend a little more time on the second one. The first one is about, again, going back to security aspect. Um, when we speak about backing up data to the cloud and everything, right? One of the first things that any organization security and risk team will ask you all to be compliant against is encryption. They will immediately speak about encryption. So give your view around it. What does Veeam do? Encryption? Why is it important and stuff? Just a quick one.
Well, in terms of security, yes, we do comply. Right. So we got a we got a built-in encryptions. We are using AES 256-bit encryptions. So your backup data, you can protect it using our built-in encryptions.
Okay.
Okay. You can once you encrypt the backup data, you can move it to any locations or even move it to the cloud as well.
Okay.
So this is
Okay.
one of the ways for us to secure the backup data
Okay.
by using built-in encryptions.
That's nice. That's nice. Thanks. Thank you so much for giving that quick view. I know you would have spent a lot more time on around encryption, but again, in the interest of time. So Now, the last topic that I think would be great to speak before we wrap up this podcast episode is cloud native. I am so high about this cloud native stuff. I'm sure the market is high about it. Uh, uh, the adoption of cloud native just continues, and it's expanding. And Kubernetes is one of those very enormously growing platforms. Right now, Kubernetes in itself provides a high availability and also provides scalability for application services. Obviously, they do it right, but do they extend it across to the data? Probably not. And that's where changes may the data management of the Kubernetes applications is of so much more importance. Now, why I'm speaking about Kubernetes specifically is I think the viewers will understand in a little while Lai goes and speaks about this particular aspect of cloud native data protection. I'm going to say cloud native, but Kubernetes Kubernetes native data management and protection by Veeam. I think the most important aspect is Kubernetes should not be just looked at as an infrastructure platform which delivers application services in a containerized way, and consider that because of its high availability and scalability, everything is protected. There is a component of data in it, and the data needs to be protected. And there's so many different things actually that goes into a containerization platform when it comes to data, and protecting that data and having the ability to recover that data is also crucial even in a container world. Now, it cannot be done in a legacy method or in a traditional method, rather, right? How we do data protection across on-prem or public clouds. These platforms require a different kind of data protection. So, like, on to you. How does Veeam do Kubernetes data management?
Well, I do agree on that. Okay, I do receive a lot of feedback from the customers. Can I just back up the Kubernetes as a virtual machine because it's running on VMware?
Yeah.
Well, I will share with them. I will say no. All right. The reason is because you need to understand about Kubernetes, right?
Right.
Kubernetes itself, it do run on top of some of the Kubernetes distributions, right?
Right.
Sometimes you can run it on the virtual machines, but the thing is when you want to back up those Kubernetes, right? It contains all the containers of your applications. Okay,
Right.
inside the containers, we call it as a pod, right? It consists of all the config, the secrets, all the services. All right.
Right. Right.
And it's not as simple as backup the whole entire thing and then you recover as a file. You can't do that. So
Correct.
this is where Veeam come into the pictures. We do have another product called Kasten, which we acquired these products, and it allow you to back up those Kubernetes natively.
Correct.
Right? Our products will sit on top of your Kubernetes, and we're
Right.
able to back up those not only your applications, but we also able to back up those data services.
Right.
So in case
Right.
of any disasters, you can not only to do backup and recover, we also help you to do, for example, application mobility. Okay,
Correct. Correct.
that means your developer go and develop the applications from on the development environments. If they want to move to productions containers, we can also help you to move it.
Right. That's
Right?
interesting.
And,
That's interesting.
not
Right.
only that, whatever things that you develop on-premise, we can also help you to move it to the cloud.
To the cloud. That's great. That's great. So the multi-cloud aspect of even Kubernetes native data management, right? Oh, that's interesting. I was excited when I spoke to the Kasten team, a month plus ago. So just for the viewers, we kind of launched Kubernetes as a service from our end from AVM Cloud, and very soon we will be launching the data protection angle and enhancing the Kubernetes service that we've launched with Kasten. Probably, hopefully, if everything goes well, fingers crossed. But the Veeam casting team is helping us do that, and it's a great way because when you look at Kubernetes native platform itself, right? It has got data services, got distributions. Kubernetes in itself is an orchestration platform. Then you still have the CSIs, you still have the storage infrastructure. Now there should be a way where you manage this data and being able to move this, help protect the development efforts around these, Kubernetes native deployments and what is done through the Kubernetes native platform, it needs to be protected in some way or the other. And Kasten does a great fit. And I also do know for a fact that Kasten very soon will also be integrated into the Veeam management platform as such. So there will be a fully integrated view, one solution like Lai has been speaking about, that will come into play very, very soon. But as of now, Kasten sits on top of Kubernetes and can work beautifully. In fact, the kind of distributions it supports almost all the distributions out there today from a Kubernetes world. Great conversation, Lai. I'm so sorry. I wish we could have had a longer conversation. Probably I could woo my team into doing multiple episodes with you to try and touch much deeper points on architectural aspects. But this was a great conversation on touching on multi-cloud capability of data management and data protection, especially data protection from Veeam. We touched on a variety of areas. Now, I think this is the right time for us to go into the final thoughts from you. I think I'll just ask you one by one and give you a thought on it, and then we'll wrap up this episode with that. So your final thoughts. How should our customers, mutual customers of ours, plan for a multi-cloud ready backup infrastructure? What do they need to do? What should be the first thing?
First, buy Veeam. All right. Yeah. Well, so try to look into Veeam because we do provide what we call unified management.
Great.
To protect your on-premise workload and also on the cloud as well.
Right. And I think very important aspect by me. Yeah, right. So if you're going to consider buying Veeam, don't forget that AVM Cloud runs on Veeam. So you just have to subscribe to AVM Cloud and Veeam comes along. Just kidding on that.
Yeah.
But anything else that you want to add on to that?
Yeah, just want to add on that is Veeam solution. We do not lock you, so there's no vendor lock-in. You can select any of your hardware and the storages. Right. Then the next thing will be we do support hyperscaler cloud agnostics. We give you flexibility to select Azure, AWS, and even GCP.
Right.
And the best part about using Veeam is we help you to do portability. You can seamlessly move your backup data on the cloud back to on-prem or from the on-prem to the cloud.
Right. That's great. So that's a great view, agnostic approach from Veeam. No lock-ins, no hardware agnostic. Storage agnostic from a repo perspective, hyperscaler agnostic from a cloud perspective, and obviously your amazing portability of license. Well, why not? Why forget that, right? The second one is any key considerations from an architectural standpoint that you think that customers should consider for a zero data loss architecture? I know I would say in the real world, zero data loss is impossible, but anything that you think the customer should focus on from architectural consideration?
Well, if you want to look into the almost near zero data loss, start to look into our capabilities on CDP, continuous data protections.
Right.
Also touch to deploy the hardest Linux repo to protect from hackers and also ransomware, and also leveraging on our capability on instant recoveries for virtual machines, for database, and even for NAS as well.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And the last bit, a partnership shout out here. Obviously, AVM has been partnering with Veeam, and we see that partnership evolving and expanding as we grow our own products and portfolios. Example is Kubernetes as a service that we launched, and we are expanding data protection around it. How does Veeam really see this partnership expanding, and from a data protection standpoint, how do you see Veeam evolving with y'all?
Well, Srinit, I would like to thank you, AVM Cloud, to support Veeam and use Veeam as a technology to provide a modern data protection.
Right.
By leveraging on Veeam technologies, you're able to use our products to provide support in terms of backup as a service, DR as a service, tape as a service, and even mail as a service as well. And of course, you can also provide Kubernetes as a service.
Thanks. You didn't forget that. That's a great point. And a pleasure is ours for partnering with y'all. It's been a great partnership, and we hope we extend this partnership and make our customers more successful together. Again, time to wrap up, time to close this episode with Lai. Thank you so much, Lai, for joining us. It was wonderful, as I said. It was a great conversation around the architectural standpoints, around so many things around data protection. I'm sure the viewers will benefit out of this. And again, thank you once again for joining us. Right. To our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode. Like always, we are not going to stop at this. We're going to come up with so much more. And for now, thank you so much. Cheers. Take care.